I say the illegalization of childhood sexuality combines all of the issues which affect children's lives to serve as suppression to representation of their subjection. Pedophilia is a prominent manifestation of childhood sexuality which combines all of the issues which affect children's lives. I know that sentence is incoherent, but I was just typing this as a note to myself. Pedophilia undermines an atavistic societal opposition towards sexuality, and it combines it with a subversion of adult authority. Oh, here. If pedophilic relationships were condoned, then it would be a recognition of the rights of children, which serve as a small step towards liberating them from the oppression of the adults that own them. Yes, I was such a moralizer back then. Just ignore that. And I talk about how this is a double-sided issue, unlike with female sexual liberation, because the lives of pedophiles are also heavily impacted by the oppression of children. Pedophilia is an issue which cements two issues: the oppression of children and the destruction of the lives of adults who love children, both of which concern me. It explains the bipolar way in which this is written, because both of the distinct issues are highly intertwined. Then I made some prescriptions, which is just stupid. More irrelevance. More moralizing. Here I talk about how parental rights are actually just slaveholders' rights. It's such a bizarre delusion where people think that they have parental rights. I mean, of course there are no rights at all, but people think that parent rights are slaveholders' rights, so just leave it at that. Children, being people with their own legitimate thoughts, feelings, and desires, deserve the same rights that adults receive. Instead, they're currently nothing other than the subhuman property of adults who have free reign to do whatever they please with them. It's quite ironic that everyone views pedophiles as manipulating children, with everyone being completely unable to observe what they themselves do to the children. And that's why I care about this topic so much. Scrolling down. Just as a tangential note, it's from Chicken Huck. There were two pedophiles who explained why what they find attractive about young boys. And no, they didn't say, I like to bite off little kids' cocks, and I like to kill them afterward. Of course, they wouldn't say anything like that, you bigots. One of them said, he's just like a flower in bloom. He's at that perfect stage in which he is hermaphroditic. That is to say, he is neither all male nor all female. Not that anybody is, of course. Everybody is some mixture of those two characteristics, but he is at the moment in that wonderful limbo between being a child and an adolescent. That is, he is certainly an adolescent at this point, but he still has this soft feminine grace about him. He was talking about a 12 or 13-year-old boy. And another pedophile said, I would try by saying that it's the freshness of their minds, the newness of their bodies, the way in which they move, they act, they're graceful. I mean, it's like... It sounds like a typical male describing a typical female. And you wouldn't say that that male is objectifying the female and manipulating her. It's just what they're attracted to. It's not pathological, it's love. Which is pathological in some sense, but I won't get into that. And it's talking more about how governments institute slavery of children. Talking about how this is irrelevant. More statistics, especially Kinsey. I don't know. I don't even want to get into this. I mean, what am I even supposed to say to these people? I remember, here I have, I was thinking of asking on a forum, if a Muslim were to say that a female would be harmed if she let anyone see her skin, and you said that I needed evidence to prove otherwise, how could I disprove his claim? And I was going to ask that on a forum to ask my actual question, because people would say, you can't prove it. And I would ask, how can I disprove his claim that any harm that comes, psychological harm which comes to a female as a consequence of exposing any of her skin is a consequence of her culture, and it's not something innate. And I would ask, I mean, I guess the only thing I could do is offer anthropological evidence which suggests otherwise, but I mean, what else can you do? And so I have some of that. Surprisingly, not always. It's not always been that people think that children having sex is somehow evil. More tangents. They're not really tangents, it's just that they don't directly relate to this topic of consent is not really consent, it's statutory rape. I got this quote from someone. When we protect children, we prevent them from having access to information and experiences. We may justify doing so in order to promote a particular notion of the good life. Have long-term relationships, fall in love, have a family, been more successful, have a better mental health, in your words. We lie to them and lock them up for their own good, but really it's for our own good. It's our conception of the good. All your examples are euphemisms for pursuing a particular kind of life that many, in fact, find to be very immoral by some standards. Mutual sexuality, output contracts, reproduction, achieving high social status, and behaving in a predictable manner do not seem to me to be goals so universally honorable they justify denying 13 to 18-year-olds control of their own bodies. Oh, actually, I think that I took this from a transcript of a radio discussion between Judith Levin and some pedophobe. I actually haven't read her book. I couldn't find it with a cursory search online. And although she is talking about teenagers, I don't know how anyone could question that teenagers are capable of consenting to sex. How can you say that a 13-year-old can't have sex? I mean, what the fuck? Here's a quote. Statutory rape laws encode the outdated and sexist idea that a woman's virginity must be protected for her father's sake, and that she herself can never desire on her own, Levin argues. So I guess I did get this from her. It's so true. And more talking about how the criminal justice system, then, according to this argument, is not primarily concerned with the safety of the child at all, but with the safety of the family structure and the maintenance of private property. I don't know why more anarchists don't talk about pedophilia. Still scrolling down. Elaborating some points. More feminism stuff. Can a child understand the consequences of traveling in a car? It is impossible for them to understand the possibility of them getting into a car wreck and understanding how automobiles operate and all that. How can they have informed consent to take the risk? But no one cares what children think about getting into automobiles, even though they're infinitely more harmful to children than pedophilia ever has been. They just throw them in and think that everything's fine. More appeal to emotion, more elaboration. Talking about this whole, but if pedophiles are attracted to children, the children will eventually grow up, and the pedophiles will no longer be attracted to them. That argument is so ridiculous for so many reasons. Here's a quote from that. But there's no need whatever for a child to know the consequences of engaging in harmless sex play, because it's simply that. It's harmless. At the moment, children are trained not to refuse adults anything and to accept all forms of physical affection as being the right of an adult to impose on a child. That's completely true. I never consented to being touched by anyone in my family. But why would they care? They didn't touch me sexually, it's just the normal hugging, kissing thing. I never consented to that. And yet, they don't care. Talking about hypocrisy. Oh, and people saying, children aren't slaves. I mean, there are laws protecting children from being beaten too hard. And that's like saying that there might be some inane laws which prevent you from beating your slaves too greatly, but that doesn't change the fundamental relationship of the master-slave relationship. Oh, talking about the Martin Niemöller quote, or whoever he is. This is really good. I don't know why I put this with the stereotypes section. There's that quote about first they came for the trade union, I think it was the communists, then the trade unionists, then the Jews, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. People use that quote saying, with the intention of implying that you shouldn't just be passive, you should act on what you believe is right. And I say how that's really not the best application of that quote, because Martin Niemöller himself was an anti-communist who thought it was justified to treat them the way the Nazis were. It's not that he didn't think, it's not that he was apathetic, he thought it was actually justified, and in the same way Christians during the Middle Ages didn't somehow know in the back of their minds that persecuting blasphemers was wrong, yet they didn't care enough to do anything about the issue. They genuinely believed that blasphemy warranted floggings, imprisonments, and murders. There's no apathy involved in that. The highly influential theologian Thomas Aquinas illustrated this belief by saying that heretics by right can be put to death and despoiled of their possessions by the secular authorities, even if they do not corrupt others, for they are blasphemers against God, because they observe a false faith. Thus they can be justly punished, even more than those accused of high treason. The harm which the Christian persecutors inflicted was not caused by apathy, but by a malevolent perspective. I'll be right back. I should save this file before the computer crashes or something like that. Okay, hopefully that's saved properly. I go on to say that simultaneously every generation believes that they are lucky enough to be living in a society which is the most enlightened of all history. And I'm saying that we think we're so enlightened when people think that we're fundamentally different from anyone who lived hundreds of years ago, but we're not. We haven't had some metaphysical comprehension of everything that prior people were incapable of understanding. And I say because of all of this, we could easily just be as bigoted as the Christians were, who treated blasphemers the way they did in the Middle Ages. We easily could be Nazis. I'm surprised I actually said this, because I believed in morality when I was even writing this. I mean, I still believed in morality. So, even now I was cognizant of this whole, we are bigots thing. And I say that Martin Niemöller, however you pronounce his name, quote, it shouldn't be used applying to apathy, saying, we need to stop the persecution of X group. That quote should indicate to us that we should be asking ourselves, who is X group? And I say, you can ask yourself if the treatment of pedophiles is genuinely nothing other than the correct way to deal with them, or if this is yet another unseen incarnation of communists, trade unionists, and Jews.